Well, welcome to episode 3 of On Gravel. This one's a little bit different because one member of our three-legged stool is in the field. This is Andrew McKeon reporting from the Golden State of California.
Hey, Andrew. What are you doing out there?
Well, you know what? It's mid-August, and why wouldn't I be deer hunting?
You can't deer hunt in August.
Don't get your skivvies in a little. I am deer hunting. So I'm in Zone B, the southern Zone B of California. This deer season opens the second Saturday of August. And it's not archery. This is full-on firearm. So I did a little research. I think there's a South Carolina kind of low country hunt that starts early in August, but this is one of the, if not the earliest deer hunts in America, and I'm here doing it.
How do you get all the cool opportunities to do these exotic hunts? I mean, you've got California deer. You were in Argentina this year. I mean, why do you get to go on all these? You're not an oil magnet. I mean, what's the deal here?
I am neither an oil magnet nor a shoe salesman. Instead, I'm an outdoor writer, which, we're looking for patrons. So note to America, if you have a hunt, an opportunity you feel is lacking, somehow a voice, texture, reason to be, just invite me and I'm likely to come. I'll hunt for very little purpose. But it's a good question. One of the great benefits of being an outdoor writer is you get a lot of invitations from often manufacturers or other groups to come and test out their products in the field. And so I'm doing that. I'm here as a guest of Mossberg Firearms and a startup optics company called Right On Optics. It's a really, really weird hunt. I'm going to tell you right now, it's not the kind of deer hunt that I thought I would ever do, let alone enjoy, but I'm doing both. It's in the wine country of California. I'm in Paso Robles, California. And we're hunting a 550 acre vineyard. So all day long we sit in a pickup and we do what I call buck trolling. We putter along at about 2 miles an hour down the ends of all of these rows of grapevines, and we look up the rows for deer. I mean, really, that's it. And I've not had much success doing it because it's the last hours of the hunt this evening, and I have not filled my tag.
Well, somebody filled a tag. I mean, we saw an Instagram post of a deer by some vineyards. I mean, somebody filled a tag.
Somebody filled a tag with what's likely to be the largest buck to ever come off this property. That's none other than Bryce Towsley, another outdoor writer who's also a guest on this hunt. And Linda Powell from Mossberg has filled her tag. I was hunting with Craig Boddington, another outdoor writer. He filled his tag last night. Everybody's filling their tags but me.
Bronson, maybe we should consider inviting a more accomplished hunter to be our third host.
I think you're right. I think that if we've learned anything from the first few minutes of episode 3 of the podcast, it's that Andrew is not a very accomplished hunter.
Or you could also take away that he is a brilliant conservationist. So I want to tell you a little bit more about this hunt to allay any concerns you have about my own abilities, which, man, why am I feeling a little hostile right now? It's kind of a trophy hunt. And I'll tell you what, we've seen a lot of deer, but we haven't seen the one. So I'm a holdout a little bit. Interestingly, there are no doe tags issued in the entire state of California. It's illegal to shoot a doe here. I would happily shoot a doe tonight because the meat is supposed to be especially succulent, being vineyard raised as it is. Bucks have to have at least 2 points on each side, at least 2 points on one side. We haven't even seen that. So it's not for lack of seeing deer, and my hunting proficiency is high, let me tell you. Just haven't seen the one.
So what caliber rifle are you shooting?
Why wouldn't it be a 6.5 Creedmoor?
Well, it's 2018, so of course it's a 6.5 Creedmoor. Because if there's one thing that I've learned, outdoor writers are incapable of shooting any other caliber other than 6.5 Creedmoor right now, until Jon Snow comes up with his new niche caliber that he's going to say is the greatest ever.
Actually, speaking of which, it's been a hot topic in the pickup. There's a lot of talking that happens on these deer hunts, as you might imagine. I think the the hunters are pretty mixed on the efficacy of the 6.5 for anything bigger than deer-sized game. And I find myself agreeing with them. So, Mr. John Snow, please stop saying that the 6.5 is capable of elk-sized animals. Here's another curious thing about California is this is a lead-free, non-toxic ammunition zone, although the whole state is. So I'm shooting a Barnes TSX bullet, 120 grains of pure copper.
Are you in the area of the state that's considered Condor zone then? Because statewide, California goes statewide, everything you hunt has to be non-lead as of July of 2019. So that's, less than a year from now. So you must be have you seen any condors where you are?
I've seen buzzards. I can't confirm that they are not condors. How's that for backing into it?
Well, condors are generally they're a little bigger than buzzards. So I'm not that I'm a condor expert. Chris Parrish from the Peregrine Fund has taught me everything I know about condors. But unfortunately, I've, working in an ammunition business, working on issues related to conservation and having to deal with the California regs the last few years, I've had to learn a lot more about condors than I ever thought I'd ever need to. But yes, California is lead free. So when people are looking for a bullet to use, it's almost invariably going to be made from copper, because that's really the only other option that's out there for a bullet for big game that's got the efficacy to actually kill large game. It's funny, the copper bullet that Barnes bullets invented, I don't know, 30 years ago, was always intended for moose and elk and real large game, and now we're seeing that we're having to make the application onto deer, but in a caliber like the 6.5 that might be a little bit underpowered by some people's standards, having a bullet that stays completely together like those copper monolithic bullets do, that might be a good application for it. Those kinds of calibers, especially for deer. But are you seeing that you feel like you need to put the bullet through the shoulder, or if you get a shot, and you probably won't because we've learned you're not a very good hunter, but if you get a shot, are you going to put it behind the shoulder, or are you going to put it through the shoulder?
I'm probably going to put it through the shoulder. These are small deer. They're not as small as a Sitka blacktail or even what I would call a true coastal blacktail. They're small desert mule deer, near as I can tell. I don't know if they're kind of a intermix of coastal blacktails and the California mule deer, but they're small. They're the bigger mature bucks that we have seen are about the size of a Midwest white-tailed doe, maybe slightly smaller. So they're not a huge animal, but they can get away quickly. These vines are pretty labyrinthine in the sense like if a deer gets away, there's lots and lots of little tunnels they can get down. So I want to drop it on the spot. So I'll probably break it down by shooting it on the shoulder. But that said, we've recovered. So I've been present and participated in 1, 2, 3 deer kills while I've been here. We've recovered 2 bullets that went almost all the way through the deer lengthwise. And the bullets we've recovered have performed beautifully. I mean, they've done exactly what you described, Brian. They've held together really nicely.
Yeah, if you take a copper bullet and you go and shoot it into ballistic gel with no other resistance, just pure ballistic gel, and we do that, in the factory all the time. We recently had the Meat Eater in, and his podcast that just recently came out from Minneapolis, he talked about shooting into ballistic gel a little bit. But what we showed was that, copper bullets, because they don't expand as much, they don't have as big a frontal diameter as what your typical lead-based bullet does. They penetrate farther, and they don't lose any weight unless a pedal breaks off, so they stay together. So that combination of having less frontal diameter and staying together and not losing any weight, they penetrate almost in any caliber 24 inches plus. And I don't know, what the dimensions are on a California blacktail, but a typical Midwestern whitetail, even a large one, is only 10 inches wide from shoulder tip to shoulder tip. So if you're shooting at a broadside animal, 10 inches is what you're looking at to penetrate through the whole deer. And if you're shooting a quartering shot, you're looking at 16, 18 inches. So a bullet that penetrates 24 inches of ballistic gel is normally going to pass through both sides of the deer, which can be good. You get more bleed out, which makes for a quicker recovery. So the advice I usually give people when they're shooting copper bullets is think of it a little bit more like a broadhead and a little bit less like your traditional bullet. So if you're going to place that bullet behind the shoulder, it probably isn't going to kill the deer, drop it right on the spot. You're probably going to have to blood trail it just because it doesn't deliver the same amount of trauma as quickly in smaller animals. But it certainly will kill a deer. I mean, it'll kill an elk. It'll kill a grizzly bear. Oh no, I didn't bring up grizzly bears, did I?
I think just tell me it won't kill a condor.
Well, if a condor eats it, it won't kill it. If it's shot by it, obviously it will. But the whole point of the lead bullet ban is so that condors, when they eat gut piles or carcasses, unrecovered carcasses, don't get exposed to lead. So, thanks for your efforts for conservation, Andrew.
Well, there's one other thing I want to say about this hunt, and then I think I'd like to leave the topic alone because I know I'll be assassinated. My character will anyway. This country is given over to vineyards. I mean, there must be within sight of this place. We're on a place called the Steinbeck Vineyard. I bet I can see 15 or 18 vineyards from this spot. Almost every one of them has an 8-foot high deer fence around it, excluding deer because especially wine grapes, are a high value commodity, and deer will eat leaves and buds when they're just forming fruit. So it's deer hard on wine grapes. This particular vineyard is owned by a family of hunters, and they've decided they'd rather see deer around and hunt them occasionally than keep them out. So, one of the neat things about this is it's one of the few places in California where we can hunt deer in the style that we are in a working vineyard. So even if I don't shoot one, I still feel like I'm working for conservation. And they taste delicious because their diet is mostly Merlot grapes.
So, Dinger, where's the weirdest place you've ever hunted deer?
Oh, man. I would say, wow, that's a tough one. Andrew, where's the weirdest place you've ever hunted deer?
Wow, what a deflector.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a weird spot. So there is a place right outside of Lincoln where that my wife and I hunt a lot. I've never shot a deer on it, but it's a little goofy in that we do hunt turkeys on there. It's kind of my wife's little turkey hole. And I think maybe 7 out of 8 years she's ever sat in that, or 6 out of 7 or something, she shot a turkey. But the trippy part is it's across the street from city limits. And so these turkeys will use the golf course that is literally diagonal from the property and walk off of the golf course where they're revered and photographed into where my wife and I hunt them. And so that's a pretty goofy setup because it's a small little 6-acre parcel in a fairly urban interface kind of place. I don't know that I've ever shot a deer in a weird place. I mean, the western Nebraska sandhill mule deer hunt is interesting in that, like Andrew said, the whole hunt is driving through the sandhills, up and down the hills, which can be pretty dicey. And then, you finally see a deer and you make a plan and go find it. But I don't know that I've ever hunted in a place anywhere near as unique as a vineyard, let alone the Steinbeck Vineyard in California. How about you?
It's funny. I work for an ammo company, and people think that I'm always going on these big, extravagant hunts. I have never hunted white-tailed deer outside of the state of Minnesota, and I've never felt the need to. I've got a farm that we manage, for deer and turkeys is the whole reason we've got it. And, I do almost all my deer hunting there. I've hunted a lot of places around Minnesota, but I've never hunted whitetails anywhere else. I have hunted mule deer unsuccessfully in New Mexico, but what strikes me is the very first time I ever met Andrew was when we were on a trip together in Mexico to hunt turkeys. And when we were on that trip, the outfitter that we were hunting with, and it was down in the Sierra Madres of Chihuahua, or Chihuahua, if you're Bob Swanson from the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. That's how he pronounced when he saw it on the plane ticket. But we were in Chihuahua, and when we were there, I mean, we all got Gould's turkeys, and I have a full body mount of that turkey, and it takes up a big chunk of my basement. But the hunt there is the first time I ever got to see Coos Deer, or Cows Deer, and there's a debate amongst biologists how you should properly pronounce it. Apparently, the family of the biologist that first discovered and named Coos Deer pronounced his name Cows, and so the family thinks that they should be called Cows Deer, but everyone else that I meet calls them Coos Deer.
I think we should let Bob Swanson figure out their name.
Yeah. Well, they'd be Kauui deer, I think, for Bob. The Jackpine Savages from Montana come up with interesting pronunciations, I guess. But that was pretty cool, sitting by a water hole a couple nights there watching these Coos deer come in. I mean, they're just tiny whitetails, and they didn't have antlers at the time. We were there in the spring, but to see the racks for those deer that were considered trophies were just tiny, but they were pretty cool. I gotta believe you'd have to have good optics to be able to hunt that country, because it's a spot and stock lasting all day type of deal. That was quite an adventure, and that was my first exposure to Andrew. And the epitome of that hunt was when I let a turkey walk 10 feet away from me so that Andrew could shoot it, because that's the first rule when you work in the outdoor industry and you're doing PR for companies, is you always let the outdoor writer shoot. And I did that.
Did I mention that I will travel anywhere to hunt?
Andrew and I turkey hunted together this spring, and I followed your rule by an 18th of a second, Bronson. It was a boom, 1, 2, 3, shoot, and he shot on 3, and I thought it was going to be shoot on shoot or something like that. I don't know. That's probably not how it went, but something like that.
That's one of the big discussions that you always have to have before you go out turkey hunting, is if the opportunity for a double comes up, when is the pull the trigger moment? Is it 1, 2, 3, boom? Or is it 1, 2, boom?
Yep.
What do you think?
So speaking of really controversial debates, you two, biscuits or cornbread?
Oh, I know you're a uniter and not a divider, and so I feel like you've been put up to this question somehow, maybe by the fake media. But I'm a biscuit man. I rarely turn down cornbread, but I'm a biscuit man.
Bronson?
Dinger, I don't know why you pick such divisive topics as well. It's almost like you're looking for wedge issues, just trying to build up ratings. But for me, I would have to say that I'm a biscuit man, and I base that on a couple of different things. First, so when I was a kid bow hunting with my dad, we stayed in a 14-foot pop-up trailer, and that's where we lived every weekend. And we had a tiny little camper oven, and the highlight for us at night is coming in and cooking a can of Dinty Moore beef stew, and then we would take those old Pillsbury muffins where you twist them and they pop open, and then you take the biscuits and you put them in a pan or whatever, and you put them in the oven and cook them for 10 minutes, and they were golden brown and ready. That was cooking for us in camp. The idea of bringing a camp chef and actually doing gourmet meals was just foreign to us. We just didn't do it. But so I grew up on those biscuits, and then I had the experience over the last couple of years of hunting turkeys in West Virginia. And there's a restaurant in West Virginia called Tudor's Biscuit World, which the greatest thing you can do is tag out early, slip off over to Tudor's Biscuit World, have yourself a biscuit, and then take pictures of that and text it to all your buddies that are still out in the woods trying to get a turkey to close the deal. Because if we don't send pictures of our turkeys, we send pictures of the Tudor's biscuits that we're eating. So those are my two biscuit stories related to hunting. But I got to admit, my wife makes cornbread, and she makes it in cast iron fry pans, and it is spectacular. She puts sweet corn, the whole kernels of sweet corn in with the cornbread, and when you bite in and you get those full kernels of sweet corn, it's like little bits of candy. I may be violating some rule. That might be some Yankee thing that I do, but that's how we have our cornbread. But if I have to pick, I'm picking biscuits.
So it's obvious to almost everybody who listen to this podcast that you guys don't know what you're talking about. Let me ask it in a different way. Is the best biscuit you've ever had better than the best cornbread you've ever had?
That's a wildly different question. So,
well, that's like asking the question: white-tailed deer or elk? Elk are not something that everyone can have all the time, and so they leap to the top. But day to day, to keep yourself alive and fed and happy, it's white-tailed deer.
You can't equate a white-tailed deer to a biscuit. That's unethical. Have some values. It's obvious the answer to this question is cornbread. And I don't even probably have to go into all the reasons you guys are wrong. I'm just going to say there's never been a time in my life where I was like, oh my God, that biscuit is unbelievable. Like alone, right? You lather the right gravy on a biscuit. Okay, now you're talking. But if you eat a biscuit and then you eat cornbread, there's no question which one is better. Now, if we're allowed to doctor the argument, if we're allowed to gravy up our biscuits, okay, maybe there could be some debate. But I don't know. I feel like it's got to be 99.9% cornbread, and then you two lost taste budless humans.
The fact that you have assigned a percentage to your argument shows that it's invalidity. It's either all or nothing, the way you started this, and now you're putting points and fractions on your argument. No. To me, first of all, if you put gravy on a biscuit, you've adulterated the biscuit. Biscuits are made for butter and honey, and maybe fresh strawberry jam. I will also say the best biscuits will never, ever be found north of Kansas, which includes Nebraska. Dinger. But so
probably fair. Maybe I just haven't had a biscuit on your level.
Well, you haven't, and I think you also misunderstood Bronson. He was not equating biscuits and whitetails. He was equating cornbread and whitetails, and I think that's absolutely wrong.
All right. We can leave it be with the acknowledgement that you're both wrong and I'm right, and we can move on to the next topic.
But before we move on, I think there's a very real possibility that if we have any listeners that live south of the Mason-Dixon line, as soon as Andrew said that you can't put gravy on a biscuit, we lost them. They're gone.
No, we first lost them when you thought that the Pillsbury things that you pop in the oven could be called biscuits.
I said that a couple of Minnesota Norwegian men, bachelor men, my dad's married, but we were bachelor. When you're in a 14-foot trailer, Pillsbury, which it's a terrific Minnesota company. I don't know if you guys know that, but they make really good instant biscuits. That's all I'm going to say. If Pillsbury is interested in a spokesman, I am available.
And all three of our listeners would probably happily go buy it. If
you've ever seen me without a shirt, you would know that I look like the Doughboy, so it's perfect.
Well, your nickname when we met in Mexico, I thought was Dinty Moore.
Well, I'm also Irish, so yeah.
All right, so transitioning to possibly definitely a less important debate. If you had to have your last meal in the field, what would it be? Cooked, prepared, found, your last meal in the field. I'll start because I just popped this question on you guys. I think that bacon and eggs in the duck blind, followed very closely by fresh walleye shore lunch, is the answer. You two?
Those are both good. They're both good, and it depends on how you do the eggs in the duck boat. I was always a one burner stove guy I would fry bacon and then do my
Eggs in the bacon grease.
bacon grease, and then hash browns and what was left. That was how I would always do it. And I don't do that. I've been field hunting so much lately that we don't do the duck boat breakfast as much anymore. But fresh tenderloins the night that you kill it, cut, washed.
Ooh.
There might even be a couple of hairs still left on it, but you washed and fried in a cast iron frying pan with butter. That's.
Mm-hmm.
That's instantaneous. It's when it's still warm from, you just shot it before sundown and you brought it in and you're cooking that up as an appetizer before your mom serves lasagna, which is a traditional Bronson Camp whitetail meal.
How very Irish of you.
Well, I can claim almost any ethnicity as long as it's Northern European or, but and will if I need to. In this era of identity politics, I feel the need to try to reach across and be a uniter.
So for me, it is it's grouse breast, just slivered, but into kind of finger-sized slivers, dusted with salt and skewed on a stick over a fire, which is how we would spend opening day of grouse season for a lot of years in Montana. We'd camp out, and that was our that and a really cold beer. You
need to clarify what grouse is to you. Which species is that?
This was sharp-tail with an occasional sage grouse, but you want to make sure it's the young juvenile of the year. The older ones are a little bit more challenging to eat that way. But yeah, fresh sage grouse or fresh sharp-tail grouse before a hard frost when their diet turns and they eat more berries instead of bugs. Their meat turns a little purple at that time. So early season grouse on an open fire with like coarse salt is beautiful.
Never done it. Another thing to the bucket list.
Yeah, I never even rough grouse for me. Rough grouse breast, pan fried in butter. I guess I'm pan frying everything in butter. That might be why I'm a little overweight.
So we are coming up on that grouse opener. We talked about the dove opener a little bit in a previous episode. Any grouse opener plans? Is that a big thing? For me, especially with a young dog, I think we're going to leave the doves alone on the grouse opener or on the dove opener and hit prairie grouse, which also opens on September 1st. So I'm hoping to have a whole limit of sharp tails to sliver and cook.
My wife has a rule that I'm not allowed to bring my dog anywhere where the snakes might still be active, and so that sometimes hurts my early grouse hunts. She likes to wait till October till the rattlesnakes are not as big of an issue. I'm perfectly allowed to go anywhere where there's poisonous snakes, poisonous spiders, alligators. All of those things are fine for me to go. I just can't bring my dog with. That's the family rule.
If you were to ask for a toast in the bar and only the men who were worth more dead than alive could toast, what percent do you think you would get in the average bar? Pretty high, I would think.
Yeah, I would say 85%.
That's just science, right? Or is it math?
I think it's social science, which isn't a real science, but yeah, it's real.
It's real at the time of the toast. I think a better question is how many men are worth less to their wives than their dogs.
Damn it. I have a new puppy, as I've told you in a previous episode, and I don't know if my wife would pick the dog over me, but I do know that when we walk in the house together, she makes that very clear every day. It's the, "Oh, Scout, you're home. Oh, God." Scout gets attention. She gets her belly rubbed. And I can't think of a time I got my belly rubbed coming home from work. So I don't know what that means for that answer.
Yeah, I think we don't take it any farther than that. Otherwise, we're going to have to come back and edit.
I've got a whole new picture of Dinger's commute, though.
If we can go back to grouse, can we go back to grouse so that we're in less dangerous country?
Well, I hate to be the spoil sport here, but I have a deer to kill. I was scouting earlier today. It was 106 degrees in the vineyards. And I realized right then and there why we only hunt at first light and at last light. And last light is coming on. So I'm going to go get ready.
Sounds good. It's been fun.
Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for talking. This was fun. And I feel like we're not fully done with the biscuit versus cornbread discussion, but we'll take it up another day. Until then, stay on gravel.